In the meantime, Vaishnavi, do you want to introduce us?
Yeah, sure. So I am Vaishnavi. I am a second year student at the University of Waterloo. I'm in the Science and Business program, and I am a designer at Bite Size and TOHacks. Oh,
Okay,
just
I
a
think,
reminder, can everyone create a Figma account so we can use that for our workshop?
yeah. So I put in the prerequisites for the hacker pack, but I'm not sure if you saw, but if you don't have a Figma account, it'd be really helpful to make one now as we present so that um, when we start the workshop, we'll be ready. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, Vaishnavi already introduced herself. My name is Hillary. I'm an arts and business student at the University of Waterloo, and currently I'm a graphic designer at TOHacks and UWCSA, and I'm also an intern, a UX UI design intern at Dozer. So we're going to start off with introducing what is design, as well as like what are some design tools that are currently used in the industry, the general design process, and then ending off with a design workshop, which will walk you step by step how to use Figma. And then we'll have a last 10-15 minutes for Q&A. So to follow along, we recommend you either have like 2 devices, 2 screens, or split screen. If you have 2 screens, that'd be much easier to follow along because the windows do get pretty small and hard to see. But if you don't, that's okay too. And again, like please make a Figma account right now if you haven't already. Just go to figma.com and it's free for students.
All right, so what is design? So before we jump into design, let's learn a little about what is design more specifically, what is graphic design, UI UX design, and product design. So graphic design is a craft where professionals create visual content to communicate messages. By applying visual hierarchy and page layout techniques, designers use typography and pictures to meet user-specific needs and focus on the logic of displaying elements in interactive designs to optimize their user experience.
Okay, so when you look at this picture, what's the first thing that comes to mind? If you can type it in the chat and Vaishnavi can read it out loud to me. Like, what do you think this picture is trying to say about, design and user experience?
There's no wrong answers.
Yeah. I'll give you like 5 seconds.
Someone says it's inefficient. UX and UI are not always the same.
Yeah.
There is right.
Are there any other answers?
No, that's all.
Okay, well, whoever said that, you're spot on. So sometimes user experience doesn't necessarily equal like UI and UX is not necessarily the same thing. User experience is more about the specific like journey and needs and meeting the needs of the users who's using your product, whereas UI design is more focused on the visual of like how things look and how things feel. But sometimes they can be a little bit detached, and it's important as a designer to really merge the two together. You want to create a product that's easy and efficient for the user to get to their goal, but also something that is comfortable, something that is visually appealing. So in this scenario, I guess the best path would be if this over here, the user experience path is the path that's been paved instead of this like long, this like inefficient path. So again, the difference between UX and UI. Vaishnavi, do you want to?
Yeah, sure. I'll explain it more. So UX design refers to the term user experience design, while UI stands for user interface design. So both elements are crucial to a product and work closely together. But despite their professional relationships, the roles themselves are quite different, referring to very different parts of the process and the design discipline. User experience. Oh, wait, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, go on.
User experience design refers to any interaction a user has with a product or service. UX design considers an element that shapes this experience, how it makes the user feel, and how easy it is for the user to accomplish their desired task, while UI design is the look and the feel, the presentation, and the interactivity of a product.
Yeah. So we'll talk a little bit more about product design.
Yeah,
It's kind of
so,
similar,
okay.
yeah. Go
Sorry
on.
about that. Product design is the process designers use to blend user needs with business goals to help brands make consistently successful products. Product designers work to optimize their user experience and the solutions they make for their users and help their brands by making products sustainable for long-term business needs.
So oftentimes in the industry, UX, UI designers and product designers, the title is often interchangeable. Sometimes there's like controversy on whether or not they actually mean different things. But in general, product design is a little bit more focused on like the future of like merging the business goals with the user needs, whereas user experience is a little bit, it also focuses on that, but it's a little bit more about like the users, if that makes sense. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to type it in the chat and we'll try to answer as we go along. So again, design is really about meeting business goals, user needs, but what's also important is technological constraints, because sometimes the ideal we have for a design that may solve like business goals and solve user needs might not be like feasible. There may be constraints, whether it's financial constraints or just technological constraints. So it's really important to consider all three of these when you're designing a product. So now we'll introduce briefly some design tools such as Figma and some other industry tools.
All right, so what is Figma? So Figma is a vector graphic editor and prototyping tool. So this means that you can create artwork made up of points, lines, and curves, and is used to build interactive prototypes that will bring ideas to life without writing basically a single line of code. So a couple of benefits of Figma is that Figma works in a browser, making it extremely available and simple. So there is no installation, no patching, no updates. All you have to do is simply log into a site and you are good to go. So the application allows multiple team members to work on a single project in real time. So again, all you need is internet connection. So I'm going to be also introducing other couple tools that do have a similar function as Figma. So this being Adobe XD and Sketch. So Sketch, it is a digital design app from Mac. So you can use it for UI, mobile, web, and even icon design. If you've been using Photoshop for these things, then you should know that Sketch is a very capable replacement. Sketch is regularly $99 a year, and there's also a 50% student plan available. So for Adobe XD is a prototyping tool for user experience and interaction designers. Adobe XD features are used for creating wireframes, prototypes, and screen designs for digital products such as websites and mobile apps. The full version is $120 a year, and Adobe is available as a native app and both collaborative editing features.
Yeah, so the reason we're advocating for Figma is just because it has web and native apps, so like you don't really have to download it in order to use it. And also the fact that you can use all its features for free as a student is why it's such an attractive tool. So now I'll briefly go over the design process. So when it comes to UX design, there's like many steps to it. Sometimes the steps like repeat, but the first step is to understand the problem. So before you start putting anything on Figma, designing any screens, you need to know what is the problem you're trying to solve. And then after you come up with the objectives and come up with some idea of what you're trying to do, you start doing research. You conduct research on like business market research as well as like user research. What are some of the frustrations or pain points that the users are experiencing? And then you learn to figure out what can you do to really solve these problems. And then after that, after you gain research, you have to analyze the research, kind of group them in categories and decide, okay, what can we realistically solve and what issues can we like not solve, and kind of narrow down your target audience. And you do that by like creating personas. Maybe I'll explain that a little bit later. But after that, it comes to the design process, in which we first have like a very rough idea, rough sketches, and you experiment with how you want something to function before you figure out how you want it to look. And then it's also really important throughout this whole process to test to make sure that your design makes sense and that you're going down the right path. So, oh, I don't know why this does not show up. So basically, the design tip that I wrote here that did not show up is that you should always start from the bottom up. You should always have like the foundation and the big idea, the concept and the features before you focus on the tiny little details. The details being like, you know, the color, the typeface, the buttons. You shouldn't ever like start on a blank Figma canvas with absolutely no idea what you're doing and just creating a pretty button. You should always just know like what is your goal. And so I'll take you through like the brief steps. So at first, the first thing you do after all the research and like figuring out the problem is to create a user flow. So before you create any fancy buttons or screens, you need to figure out the skeleton of the product's functionality. So it's important to map out the process in which the users will go through to achieve their goal. So you should ask yourself, like, what tasks will the users need to accomplish and how will they get there? So a lot of the times user flows are kind of like a mind map of sort. And you just start from the beginning of when the user first like uses your product and then the little decisions you have to make in order to get to their end goal. And then after that, after you figure out like the functionality, you can start by sketching the basic interface of how you imagine the app to look. And the point of sketches is to make it really rough so that you can experiment with lots of different ideas. And so you shouldn't focus too much time on like making it pretty. It's just like, does it work well? And then after you figure out the sketches, you want to narrow it down to maybe like one or two and create some wireframes. So wireframes are, it's kind of like the next level above sketches. They're very rough, like how you imagine the interface to look. And typically don't like add any colors or anything yet, just figure out where everything should be placed and whether or not it makes sense. And after you test that out and make sure that it's solid, that's when you like do the prototype and make it look pretty and polished and finished. So now it's time for the workshop. I hope you all have a Figma account by now. And if those who already have a Figma account, if you could just log in, I'll just give you like a quick 30 seconds to log into your Figma accounts. And in the meantime, we'll have a quick Q&A about the content that we just talked about. Does anyone have any questions about design or Figma or anything?
There was one question. I think Vaishnavi has got it.
Oh no, I see it. I want to know about logo designing with tags in Figma. How can you do so?
Oh, logo design. So logo design, you can simply use the text tool to like write the text and experiment with different fonts. But if you really want to create something more personalized, you can use the pen tool. So I don't know if you've ever used the pen tool in like Photoshop or Illustrator, but basically the pen tool is a vector tool where you can create like points, vertices, and curves to create logos. So maybe I can demonstrate that a little bit later. But yeah, does that answer your question?
There's another question. How quickly do you usually work through the 4-step process you mentioned on your presentation?
Oh, the 4-step process, it really depends on your product. And when it comes to design, there's no really like end point. Like even after something has been produced and like the app is out there, it's always constantly like being reiterated. Like even though, you know, you have Instagram and Facebook, there's still designers working to like make the next update to make it better. So it really, really depends. It could be as long or as short as you need or want it to be. I know that wasn't really like an answer, but yeah, like in terms of the hackathon, I think you'll have to skip like a lot of the research and user testing part due to like we only have 24 hours. But I would say that for the sketching, like the hand sketching, you should maybe do 2 or 3 designs, and then the wireframe, just go like through one wireframe, make some adjustments to make sure it works before you hop in and add the details and stuff. So is everyone logged into their Figma account? If you're not, can you like put in the chat or like raise your hand or something, and I'll give you some more time.
Yeah, the workshop link is on the chat as well. And I think there's also one more question.
Yeah, what's the question?
Is there a way to effectively convert Figma files to HTML, CSS, and JavaScript?
I'm pretty sure there is, although I'm not too familiar with that because I myself am not a developer, but I know that there's I'll show you over here. So design, prototype, inspect. If you click the inspect button on this panel, it should show you like the code for it, I think. Although I'm not too sure. I'm pretty sure that like developers can work with Figma though to code it. Okay, so once you have logged into your Figma account, usually to create a new project, you click the new button on the top right corner and you click design file. However, today we'll be using a pre-made file for the workshop, which Vaishnavi already sent in the chat. So if you could open that up. Okay, so once you have the link open, click on the Figma icon to go back to files so you can see all your recently viewed. And in your recents, the file that we sent you, I want you to right click and click duplicate so that you have your own editable version of it. Editable, editable, not edible. Yeah. So once you've duplicated the file, it should say copy of intro to Figma. So now I'll briefly introduce the Figma user interface. So as you can see here at the top left corner are your basic tools. This is the selection tool, the frame tool, shapes, pen. This one is text. This is just the basic like hand moving tool, and comments. So you could, when you click on the comments tool, you could leave comments on different parts of the Figma file. On the left panel here is the layers panel, so you can keep track of different elements and you can move them like to be above or below other elements, and you can also nest elements within a frame, if that makes sense. So a frame is kind of like a folder, and all these objects or elements that are inside the frame, when you move the frame, it all moves together. And then on the right panel here is the edit selected element panel. So if you click on an element, if I click on this frame, for example, you'll see this pop up, and then you can change like the color and the alignment and size and everything. And then here is the prototype tab, where when you're done the design, you can link the screens together. So when you click play over here, you'll be able to see everything like transition from one screen to another. Okay, so now we'll start the workshop. How do I get out of here? Oh. Okay. So I see a lot of you are still on the main file. So if you could just go back to the files and duplicate this file, and then go on your duplicate copy so you're not on the main file, if that makes sense. Yeah, so you should be on your own version instead of on this one. Okay, so I'm assuming most of you are in your own copy of the file. So let me introduce what I have prepared for you. So over here, I created like a mock-up sample of what an app prototype might look like on Figma. So I've created a fake app called Wanderer. So it's kind of like a Yelp app where you can explore different like food and activities and tourist attractions. And there's, the landing page. This is called the splash screen. You have the sign up page, and also these buttons. So if I, how do I move this? If I click prototype, you can see that these buttons are all linked to different pages, so that when I play the prototype, they'll all come together. So maybe I'll give you a demo first to show you what it looks like. Yeah, so this is a prototype on Figma. Oh. It's kind of laggy on my screen, sorry. Okay, so let's start again. Yeah, it's really laggy on my screen. Maybe if you try it on yours, it'll look better. But basically, everything should link to the other screens. And then you should be able to scroll. You can also horizontally scroll like that. Yeah. Okay, anyway, back to the file. Okay, so for this workshop, we're going to recreate 3 of the screens. We're going to recreate the splash screen, the landing page, and the sign up page. So I've prepared some instructions for you so you can go back to it when the workshop is over. So again, I've introduced the basic bars here. So we're going to start with creating a frame tool. So click on the frame tool here, or F as a shortcut. And if you click on the frame tool, you can create your frame whatever dimension you want. But since I want mine to be the iPhone 11 dimension, I'm going to go on the right side here. Make sure I click phone under the frame section and then iPhone 11. And that'll ensure that it's the right dimension. And then after I create my frame, I'm going to create text. So to create text, you click T or this text button over here. And in the middle of the screen, I'm going to name my app Wanderer. And it's very small, so make sure in the design tab, you can just change the size. If you want to make sure it looks exactly like the example, you can click on the one on the example and check its specs. So this one, it's 36 Roboto and bold. So I'm just going to put the same thing in mine, 36 Roboto bold. And then if I want to make sure it's centered, I can click this center align button at the top right corner of the panel to make sure it's in the center of the screen. And in order for this to work, you have to make sure that your text here in the panel is inside the frame. If it's not inside the frame, if it's like outside over here, then obviously this won't work. Yeah. Okay, so after you do that, you can change the color of the frame. So to select the whole frame, you just click on the title of the frame. You can rename it here in the layers panel. So I'm just going to rename mine splash screen. And then on the right-hand panel, I'm going to go to fill. And then I'm going to use this eyedropper tool in the color section and color it the same turquoise color. And then with the word, you can do the same thing, make it white. Okay, so we're going to create another frame for the landing page. So click F or the frame button at the top left navigation bar, and we're gonna do the same thing. Click iPhone 11. Oh, is that the wrong one? That's the wrong one. iPhone 11 Pro X. Okay, and then I'm gonna do exactly the same thing. So T for text, type it in. Okay, now we're gonna learn how to make a button. So buttons are simply made out of shapes and text, and then later on they're linked to other screens so that they work. But for now, we're just going to make a basic button by using the rectangle tool and the text tool. So the rectangle tool, you can use the keyboard shortcut R, or on the top left, click the rectangle tool. And then you can just drag it across the screen like that. If I'm going too fast, let me know in the chat and I'll slow down a bit. Okay, and then I'm going to center align the rectangle tool using the alignment tool at the top right panel. And then inside the rectangle, I'm going to use the text tool and write sign up. Okay, so once I've made that, I want to make my button to look exactly like the one over here. So what I'm going to do is I prepared it for you here. So for the rectangle, you're going to use the fill hex code 4AA4H3, or you could use the eyedropper tool. So I'm going to click on the rectangle, and in the fill here, again, you can use the eyedropper tool to capture the color, but you can also enter the hex code manually, 4AA4H3, and that'll make it that turquoise screen color. And then if you click on the rectangle, you can also enter its X and Y coordinates. So the X and Y coordinates are relative to the frame. So if I put 24 and 624, it means that it is 24 pixels away from the left edge of the frame, and it is 624 pixels away from the top of the frame. And then after you put the X and Y coordinates, you can put the width and the height. So the width is 328, and the height is 56. And as well, the corner radius of the button is 20, so I'll just add that to this field over here. Okay, so it should look pretty similar. I mean, it should look exactly the same in terms of the rectangle. So now let's fix the text. Click on the text that says sign up. And the fill is just white, so you can just click on the fill colors and then drag it to the top left corner to get that white color. The typeface is Roboto, the font is medium, so let's change that to medium. And the size is 17. Okay. So once you have that, I'm just gonna drag it so it's centered with the rectangle. And then I'm just gonna click and drag to highlight both of them and then group them together. So to group, you can either use Command G or Control G, or you can right click and group selection. So there's your button. Okay, so now that we've stylized our button, we're going to move on to text fields. So text fields are similar to buttons, except instead of rectangles, these ones are made out of lines. So to do that, we're going to click the shape tool over here. If you click the drop down of the shape tool on the top left navigation bar, you should see the line tool, or you could use the shortcut L to create a line. And then if you just create a line like this, it's the angle is kind of very flexible, but I want it to snap at 0. So to snap it at 0, I'm going to hold shift. So by holding shift, the line I make is going to snap to its nearest 45 degrees angle, like that. Okay. So I want the line to be the same length. So I'm going to click this and see that the width. So right now this is a grouped item, but if you click into the line, if you click into the line, you'll see the width is 300. So I'm just going to enter the same thing. So 300 is the width of the line, and I'm going to center align the line with the frame. Okay, and then after I do that, I'm going to add text. So I'm going to click the text tool. I'm going to click over here and I'm going to write name. And then, oh, it's supposed to say first name. So first name. And then let's make that a gray color so it looks like it's a field that you need to input. So another way of selecting multiple items, instead of highlighting, you can also click on something, hold shift, and then click on the second item. So this allows you to select multiple items at the same time by holding shift. Okay, so now I have these selected. I'm going to click fill. Oh, I guess fill only fills the text. Okay, so the text, let's make it this gray color, A0, A0, A0. So I'm just going to copy that and paste it to the stroke. The stroke is for the line. So now both of them are this gray color. Okay, now that that's done, I'm going to highlight both of them and I'm going to group them together so that it's easier to duplicate. Okay, now that I've done that, to duplicate, all I have to do is, use the shortcuts copy and paste, or I can Command D for Max or Control D. And then after that, you'll see there's a duplicate version of it, which is just right on top. So you just drag it down like that. And then I can click Command D again, and it duplicates another one. Okay, so the other field says email and password, so I'm just gonna enter that email. Password. Another cool trick you can do on Figma is you can measure the distance between different items. So if I click email and I hold Option for Macs or Alt for PC or Windows, you can measure the distance between the selected item and other items on the screen. So for example, between email and first name, there's 48 pixels. So you can make yours the same. You can measure it. Email, first name, it's 32. So I know that I have to move this up a little bit more. 48. And if you want to move something in a straight line, you can also hold shift to move it so that it stays within the same axes. I'm actually going to move all these down a little bit, like that. Okay, is everyone on the same page? Oh, I realized I made the text field on the wrong page. Okay, hold on. So what we're going to do is we're going to duplicate this. So Command or Control D, and so that I have two screens. And I'm actually going to delete this one because I realized I made it on the wrong screen. So let's delete that. So yours should look something like this. I know this is in the wrong position, so if you want to put this in the right position, you can click on this one. The X is 24, the Y is 536, so you could just enter that. 536. Okay, now that we've learned how to make text fields, let me introduce a little bit about graphics and icons. So again, the pen tool over here can be used to create vector graphics from illustrations to icons and shapes. So the illustration here that I actually made using the pen tool. So for this workshop, I'm going to skip teaching this just because the pen tool is pretty complicated and it's something that you can learn by watching like YouTube videos. But basically, like these shapes, this whole illustration are made of like these little vectors, vector like points, and these lines determine the curve of the points. And when all these points are put together into a closed shape, you can fill it, and that's what creates a shape. So for example, like if I move this point over here, oops, it'll like change how the tree looks. Yeah, so this by using the pen tool, you can make like graphics, you can make logos. Yeah, so for now, we're gonna copy and paste this into our screen. So I'm just gonna Command C or Control C, and then Command V or Control V, and just put it in the center of the screen like that. Okay, so now that we have like the basic elements down, I'm going to talk a little bit about interactions. So the cool thing about Figma that differentiates it from other, like, Illustrator, Photoshop, is that it has the ability to create prototypes, which means that you can link different screens with each other so that when you play it, the buttons, when you click this button, it can take you to the next page. So in order to do that, you have to click the prototype tab on the right-hand panel. And then I'm gonna select my device, so it's iPhone 11 Pro, so that when I play it, I can see like the iPhone. Okay, so what we're gonna start with is we're going to link this button to this next page. So let me name these pages. So this one, this screen is called the landing page. So I'm gonna name that in the layers panel, landing page. And this frame is called the sign up page. So let me write sign up. Okay, so I'm going to link this button to the sign up page. So to do that, I click on the button, and then there's a little white circle on the right side of the button. So you just click on it, you drag it to the next screen like that. And when you do that, you'll notice there's a little little interaction details pop up. So you can explore that a little bit later on your own, but basically it just like, how will the interaction work? Will it be while your mouse is hovering, or when you tap on it, or while you're pressing on it? So for us, it's just going to be on tap, navigate to sign up page. So let's close that for now. And let's link a few more buttons before we play it. We're also going to link the splash screen, so this green screen here with the landing page. So to do that, you click on the splash screen title, and then you'll see this little white circle. Again, you click and drag it to the landing page. And then we're also going to make a back button. So to do that, I'm just going to click the text button and then write back. I'm just going to go back to the design tab and make it look prettier. So the back button is size 17, regular, and it's that green color. So size 17, regular, green color. Okay, so I'm also going to link this back button to the landing page. So to do that, I'm going to go back to the prototype tab on the top right corner of the right-hand panel. And then click on the white circle and drag it to the previous screen. So it looks like that. So at this point, you should have 3 links. One link here, one link between the sign up and the sign up page, and then one link between the back button and the landing page. And then once that's ready, zoom out, look for this play button. It should be a blue square like play button, and you're gonna drag it to your splash screen. So what this play button means, this blue one, is it indicates and tells Figma where to begin playing your prototype. So we want it to start here. So that's why I put it here. And then when you're ready, you can click this black play present button at the top right corner of your screen. Oh, okay. So yeah, this is the second one that we made together. So when I click on it, it should take me here. When I click sign up, it'll take me to the sign up page. When I click back, it should take me back. Does anyone have any questions so far? Does anyone need help?
I think there are 2 questions. Can you repeat how to measure the spacing? I don't know if we covered that. Yeah.
Okay, so to measure the spacing between things, you click on something, and then if you're using a Mac, you hold Option, the Option key. If you're using PC, I believe it's the Alt key. So you click on something, you hold the key, and then you just hover over different things. So if I hover over the frame, you can see that from the bottom of the button to the bottom of the screen is 220 pixels. Between this and the password line is 110 pixels. Between the button and the Wander logo is 420 pixels. What's the second question?
Where do we drag the play button? Like, how do we tell it to start where we want?
Okay, so make sure that you're on the prototype tab on the right-hand panel. And then once you're on the prototype tab, if you zoom out and see the entire screen, you should see this little blue play button somewhere. Do you see it? Okay, so once you see the blue play button, when you zoom out and on the prototype tab, you just drag it, you click and drag it to the screen that you made over here. And then once your play button is where your screen is, and your screen is linked to other screens as well, you can click the play button at the top right corner that says present. And then that should play your prototype from the beginning.
Just to add on to that question, if we were to make our own project, would that blue play button automatically be there?
Yeah, it'll automatically be there. As soon as you click the prototype tab on Figma, the blue play button will be there.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's the basics of it. The last thing I want to tell you guys about is there's a feature on Figma called components. So components are basically master items. You can create something called instances, which are kind of like the master items like children. And you can do that by duplicating the master item. So changing the master component will change all of its instances, but changing an instance will not affect the others. So I'll give you an example. So if you see the master components up here, at the very top of the file, you can see there's like a sign up button, active and disabled one, and a secondary button. So this one is a master component, but these sign up buttons down here, these ones are instances. So this one is like the master key, I guess, and this one is like its copies. So if I click on this master component, I click design and I change its color, for example, to like this magenta color, all the other ones will change. This one didn't change because this one is associated with this disabled button here. But so this is really useful if you're creating something with many, many different screens and you decide that you want to change like something, change the color, change its size, but you don't want to change all of them individually. That would take a lot of time. So by creating components, you can easily change things and save you a lot of time. So this one, for example, I can make it yellow, and then this one will change as well. But see, if I click on this one's an instance, not a component. If I change the instance color, only the instance will change. Like all the other ones won't change. You see? Okay, so let me revert everything and make it back into the green color. Oh, to undo, I just press Command Z or Control Z. So to create a component, what you do is you select something. So this one's already grouped together, so it's very convenient. And once it's grouped, I can right click and press Create Component over here. So you know it's a component because it'll be outlined in purple when you select it. When it's not a component, it'll be in blue like that. So this component, I can copy and paste it. And then, so this one is the original one. And you know, because on the left-hand panel, the component will have this like 4x4 like thing here. And then its instance will be this like hollow diamond, if that makes sense. So this one is the master component and this one is the instance. So again, this one, if you wanted to, you could change the color and then the instance will change along with it. So yeah, that's something cool that you can do on Figma. Okay, that's basically it. And that's the end of the workshop. So now it's time for our Q&A. So does anyone have any questions about how to use Figma?
So I think there were 2 questions. How do I change the spacing between text/objects once I see how far apart things are?
How do you change the spacing between text and objects?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so for example, I click on this and I measure it. This is 102 pixels to the right, 101 pixels to the left. This one is 112 and then 91. So that means, well, usually what I do is I just drag it and then I just keep measuring it. But if you really want to, you can calculate it. You can just be like, okay, so this one is 112. This one is 102. What's 112 minus 102? It's 10 pixels. And then you can go to the X and Y. So X is like the horizontal axes, right? So you can, right now 91 means that this is 91 away from the left hand edge. So if you want to add 10, so 91 plus 10 is, I'm so bad at math, 101. So that'll change it so that it's the same. But usually I just drag and like measure and eyeball it, if that answers your question.
And another question is, how does the software recognize when an object is a button and when it's a text field, etc.?
Oh, So the only difference is it doesn't recognize anything. When you prototype it, if I prototype this text field, like Figma will assume it's a button. So if I, for example, okay. So you know how when I clicked on this, I dragged this, this little white circle to the next screen? I could do the same thing with the text field. So if I click on the text field and I drag it to the screen, that kind of makes the text field like a button. It'll work like a button when you prototype it because I made this interaction. Does that make sense? So when I'm playing the prototype, if I click anything within this box area, it'll take me to the previous screen because I've added this little interaction here. And then to delete the interaction, you just click on it and you just backspace like that. Are there any other questions?
I think those are all the questions, Hillary. Thank you so much, Hillary and Vaishnavi, for that great work.
Yeah, if you guys have any more questions, you can always add me on LinkedIn or add Vaishnavi on LinkedIn, and then we can answer some of your Figma questions or design questions in general. And yeah, I'm so excited for what you all are going to design and create for this hackathon.